The four corners of the earth we are preach God's word in various places. And from in the darkest night right to the daylight we give praises. So we give praises. Now on everyday topics, well you know we come for shine some light using godly principles. Yes, that's right. On the straight and the narrow path, that's where we go. Welcome to the Daylight Show.
Welcome to the Daylight Show with yours truly, Crystal Daye, and I am super excited for another amazing episode lined up. Now, do you remember what's the mission of the Daylight Show? Yeah, you're supposed to used to it by now, right? The mission is to shine light on everyday topics using biblical principles. So we are here to talk about every topic that can relate sex, pornography, master, whatever you want to say, riches, money. We want to talk about it, but guess what? We want to hear what the Lord has to say about it so that we're able to build our faith. Now, this week, this topic was actually specifically sent to us like, hey, for next season, please tackle this topic. So shout out to, a former schoolmate of mine, Stacy, that said, listen, Crystal, I want to hear about this topic. But then it became personal because I have a preteen. So I kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about, right? We're talking about how do you have a conversation with your teen about sex. Yes, on last season we had Reverend Carla Dunbar, and I think she touched a little bit on it, and I talked about the importance of sex and how the church should have this conversation. But that was big people thing, I'm not gonna lie, a big people thing, But this week we're here to talk about the teen aspect. Now, having a preteen myself, boy, like, you wish you could have just be 6 or 8 again. Because right now, the hormones and everything the attitude that comes with it. But I have 2 of my dear, well, my big brother is here, so I'm on my, my best behavior, of course. And then someone that I've really just admired her journey. And I believe the both of them are extremely equipped. But if they're not equipped, I'm sure they're anointed to have these conversations about teen and parenting. So I want to welcome on the Daylight Show this week, Dr. Jayson. The last time we had a conversation, he says, Crystal, I would never go back to school, and him just finish his master's. So, let's see. Dr. A. But I welcome Jayson Downer from the Mogava. Welcome, Jayson. And of course, we have Megan Hylton, psychologist and speaker, author, and, just an amazing woman of God. We are excited to have you here on the show. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to start by you guys just telling them a little bit about you. What about your parenting life, your married life, just to kind of give them an idea of why you can talk about this topic. So let's start with you, Megan.
All right, thanks again for having me. So I have 3 beautiful daughters who I consider my miracle children. I've been married for 24 years, and we call them our miracle children because for 10 years we were told we couldn't have any children. And then God just stepped in and did his thing. So out of that experience, I ended up writing a book called Directing Your Arrows. And from that, and working as a psychologist, I've been able to work with parents and just learn as I go and empower other parents. So I do both counseling and coaching for adults and children, and I mentor parents as well.
I love it. And I should shout out, her little daughter dominated the 2023 Kingdom Indie Author Award. She won the Children Award, Hylton, for her book, Learn to Use Your Wings. You understand? So I had both Crystal and my niece to read it, so it was a really good read. So shout out to Jayana. Welcome, Jayson. Everybody know. If Jayson, I'm a big brother. So, I'm here. Love act like him want to bad me up sometime, but I know that it is in love. So welcome, Jayson.
Crystal, thanks for having me. And great show, great impact. So Jayson Downer, I'm married 17 years to my wonderful wife, Setoya Wilson Downer. And of course, we have 3 beautiful children together. Daniel, 14, Jaden and JD, 8, going on to 80. twins, boy and girl. So I wear many hats, Can now say I'm an associate forensic psychologist, um, parenting consultant, and of course, psychotherapist comes under all of that. But I do a lot of work with men and boys. A lot of work, a lot of intervention in the prison, inner city communities, you name it. And of course, I do have young ladies that I have to deal with too. Particularly the fact that now I have a 14 plus year old daughter. And of course, as I say, a little girl, 8 going on to 80. So, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing. So let's jump. I want to just ask the conversation because even before we talk to them about teens, is there a way, no, let me ask it this way. Should we start to talk to them about things like sex before they become teenager? And at what age do we start to introduce that topic about sex? Because here's why. I do feel like most of us as adults don't even have conversation about sex. like unless you're talking to your friend about something like that. But really and truly, we don't. I can't think of good sex conversations, right? As adults, much less talking to young people about it.
I'll leave to my senior in the field.
All right. So basically, the best thing is to start having conversations, appropriate conversations early with your child. Don't wait until they are teenagers or you discover something in their bag or you see something on their phone. It's important that as they are growing, you talk to them about their body, about the changes, about good and bad touch. And as you do that, you are creating an atmosphere for conversation to continue because conversations about sex is not supposed to be a one-time event, right? So you start early and that causes the child to feel comfortable talking with you. And then basically you have to know your child. There's no one age that we can say once the child gets to 12, you're supposed to talk because some children at 10 are well advanced. So you have to know the maturity level of the child and then you begin to have the conversation. But it's important that you start from where the child is.
What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with her. Start from parenting, really, and the good touch, bad touch, as she mentioned. So she laid that quite clearly. For me, I've had to have the conversation quite a bit, particularly because of one of my roles when I was running a boarding facility with boys age 11 to 19. So it's easier for me to talk to boys, clearly because I'm a man having gone through puberty myself, But when it relates to the girls, it's a bit more difficult. So back to her point of having in parenting, talk to your child, good touch, bad touch, and just having conversation. Because I did that, my daughter comes to me about everything, and it makes me uncomfortable. I must tell you. I can I share an example? So she watching the television. I know when I was growing up, you wouldn't see ads about condom. She saw a condom ad, and she said, "Daddy, what is condom used for?" And I said, "Go ask your mother." To be honest,
they do that
I said,
a
"Go
lot.
ask your mother." I was just uncomfortable talking to my daughter about it because So just to share that point, it's easier for me where meals are concerned, but I do have the conversation now. Still feel a way talking to my daughter about it, but it's a must have.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty and the transparency that you shared. So even as let's get into all right, say we didn't do it, before
Early.
the early age as we should. You probably mentioned, I remember most of us growing up don't have sex because you don't get pregnant,
That's
or
it.
if you're in a Christian household, you're told don't have sex before you're married,
Yeah.
and then they're like going into schools and the kids, especially when they reach high schools,
Right.
a lot of young people are exposed to sex, come to school. I remember going in high school, at 13, 12, 13, your friends are telling you how good sex is,
That's
how
where
great
sex
it
ed
is.
is.
Yeah,
That's where I learned sex ed
exactly.
from my friends.
So, I'd love for us to gauge, some of the conversations, like what do we say? What are some of the conversations with, like right now, I'm just taking up my pen and taking notes. Or just have the conversation so I can let Crystal just watch an episode.
Oh wow, you're looking for the easy way out. Right. So it boils down to, as I said, starting where they are. So when I remember having that introductory conversation with my eldest daughter, and I just asked her. I think we were watching a movie or something, and that's a good place when you see something on media or you hear them having a conversation, you grasp that opportunity. So I basically just asked her, how much do you know? Tell me what you know or what you think about sex. Because I wasn't going to assume that, oh, she has never heard of it. Yeah. And from there, based on our relationship, she was able to tell me what she knew. And that laid the foundation for where I need to correct. Because they're going to get some of the information
Yes.
wrong.
Yes.
And I could also pick up on the areas that she probably doesn't know enough of, or the areas that she's uncomfortable talking about, right? And so I said to her after she answered me, I said, is there anything that you want to know that you don't know? Do you have any question? Because you remember you mentioned that we were just told don't have sex.
Yes.
I want her to know that this is a conversation we're having. It's not a bad thing. Yes, it's a part of life. And so you are growing. I went through this. Ask me what you need to know. If we take it from a judgmental perspective, then they're not going to listen. And they'll listen to the friends who are just talking casually
Yes.
about sex. So it's how you present it. And we talked. She asked her questions. I didn't want to overwhelm her though. So there was a point when I said, okay, we can talk about this again.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, because it has to be an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
So we talk teaming here, eh?
Yes, I
So
love it.
a part of my thing is personal experiences, right? Because I really don't believe my experiences, my journey thus far, just happened so, right? So as I shared earlier, I was head of a boarding facility, and I remember once one of my ancillary staff went into the bathroom and she saw something on the wall. And put it this way, it looked like mucus. And she came out and she was cursing, Mr. Downer, these boys not have manners. Can you imagine they're there and they're masturbating on the wall? I said, calm down, just let me deal with this. And I called the first farmers in grade 8 in my office. And I was having a conversation with them about their bodies and what is happening now, etc., etc. I remember and I shared my experience of when I was 12 and 13, which I'm not afraid to share. Because a part, I think, of parenting or mentoring or relating is to share your personal experiences. Where you went wrong, where you think you did good, what you can do better. And I remember at the end of that conversation, a young man turned back and he said to me, sir, he lived with his mother and she has another younger daughter. And he said, sir, thank you for talking to me about this because I couldn't talk to my mother about this. That's where it starts, the feelings, the hormones and the action. Most boys going through puberty, you hear about wet dream, and they start caressing yourself. So that was a good point to start at, to share and also share with them best practices. On one hand, I share that in the education system, it is that it's healthy. I don't know if you know that. Our viewers need to know that. On the other hand, I shared my belief as a Christian. I didn't impose it. But I shared what lasciviousness is, entertainment of lustful desires, how to deal with this thing. So I gave him options and I told him what option is best as a Christian as opposed to you must do this. So that's a way we can, especially as Christian parents, that we enter the conversation and use those situations. All right.
Yes, well, I'm just like, notes, no. But, we're going to take our break right now. And as usual, during our break, we have the book of the week. So I want you to pay attention to this week book of the week. Please go to Amazon, Kindle, Barnes and Noble's, a bookstore near you, and go and support these authors that are supporting the show. Listen, you don't want me back for season 3? Listen, I want you to go and support these authors. Also, these books are unpicked, right? I believe that they're here to empower you, equip you, educate you, so that you're able to make better decisions, even whether you're a Christian or not. So I'll be back in a few minutes from the break.
Welcome to the Daylight Show.
Wow, listen, welcome back to the second half of the show. And I am just so captivated by this conversation, because if I'm admitting, like it's a very uncomfortable conversation to have with my daughter. And I also mentor a lot of girls. What I found is that it's easier for me to talk to the girls that I mentor. So, like my mentees that come to me, I can have the conversation. When I go into school, I have the conversation. But with Crystal, you just see her like, like, she's not really. So, but again, just really, really grateful, because guess what? We have a psychologist in the house. They are ministers, they are parents, they are, spouses themselves. So I really appreciate, the standpoint from all angles. So we're going to start do our Speak Jesus box this week. And Jayson set up Megan and putting that on the camera to let her go. But it's okay.
She's in good colors, purple and white. I had to plug that.
Yes, he had to. Go ahead.
Okay, so this says the only time you should look back, I think a part of it is missing, but the only time you should look back is to see how far, I want to add something, to see how far you've come. Okay? So life is about growth, and life is about evolving into the best version of yourself. We look back to learn from our past and push us forward into the future. So looking back shouldn't be for you to regress, to beat down on yourself, to start blaming, but understand that your past is the fuel for where you're going. Use it to push you forward.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thank you, Megan. Thank you for that encouragement. So here's where I want to go, because growing up, I remember when it comes on to things like pornography, like, confession. I used to read the Core True Confessions book. Yeah, I can, you understand? So I had some older cousins that used to hide it under the bed, and I could read from a very young age. So you're reading these things that you don't understand. Somebody, but you're like, captivated. But no, on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, in the songs, everywhere they're just bombarded with sex. How, as parents, we can deal with, those information overload that they are getting, and some of it, definitely most of it is, just not healthy for them. So I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on that.
I mean, it's important that parents understand that sex ed begins at home first. It's not the church's responsibility. Even before the church, it's not the school's responsibility. It's your responsibility as a parent to begin that conversation. And I must also say, stop telling your child not to look at or seek out illicit or sexualistic material when you yourself at home speak and do certain things that's highly inappropriate. Children do more of what you do than more of what you say. So it's very important for you to understand that. So again, parents need to understand that the sex ed conversation, beginning what Megan said, that the conversation which would have started age appropriately over the time, it should lead into that, because you should know your child. And of course, you're now able to intercept whatever else that might come in the home, because the village still exists, because we learn stuff from the village. It's just that the village is also virtual. So you have to now learn to even parent in the virtual space. So again, understand that sex ed must begin with you.
I love that.
Yeah, and I want to add too, we can't be very laid back when it comes on to sex ed, as he said, because if you don't do it, someone else is going to teach them. When I was preparing to come on, I was reflecting. I was like, okay, so who taught me? Yeah? And my parents are awesome. I love them dearly. Let me put that out
We do love them.
there. Yeah?
We do love the parents.
Yes. And I spent most of my high school years with my aunt. I love her too dearly. Yeah, but I didn't get that conversation. So my first knowledge was through reading, as you said, and then my friends and the guidance counselor at school, who, by the way, when I was reflecting, she really never told us much. I wish I could find her right now to have a conversation, but they didn't tell us much. So I had to use my curiosity. And then when I was about 16, 17, I had a youth leader who became more of a mentor. And she's the person who really had a full-on conversation, right? Yeah. And she had it in a way that I could understand and apply it to my Christian life. Good. So you can't just, because what my friends were telling me, I probably would not be here right now. If I had followed them.
Do it.
Yeah, that was the message. Do it.
I learned about, aside from, being seen magazines here and there, sex ed for me was in high school. I went to all boys school, the great Kingston College.
Oh Lord!
But
hi to the Wolverians out there.
I feel a pain, but that's where I got sex ed from, and I had nowhere to go. Again, love parents, love guardians, family members, but there was no filter. There was nothing. You go to church, it was just. Make sure you know they have sex ed. You're coming to church, I will read you. So,
put you at the back bench.
Yeah, so those things. So for me, it was trial and error. Not that I was sexually active before I became an adult, to be honest. You understand? But my mind was out of control. My mind was out of control because on one hand they're telling you abstain, but on the other hand your body's telling you something else. There's a middle ground, and nobody would come and say, "This is what I did," etc., etc.
Yeah.
So I make it personal. Now my point of duty to speak about it. I mean, harder with my child, but that's what I try to do.
Yeah. So, we're winding down, but I have two very hard questions. So, I want to Holy Spirit, prepare them for my very two hard questions. One, homosexuality. Because before, again, especially growing up in the inner city, growing up in Jamaica, growing up in the Caribbean, homosexuality was, is just abomination. So you really didn't have much exposure to it. Right now, I remember my little sister saying to me about pansexual, something sexualish. I remember all of these things, and I remember, again, she lives in the US. Yes. And she was saying to me, like, Crystal, like, this is the thing, like, calm down, it's not that serious, because of, again, even more exposure. So how do you have the homosexual conversation?
In this case, knowing is not a bad thing. It makes our job a little easier, right? So we know that they know something. Again, start from there. And don't start by saying, hey, I'm a Christian and this is what I believe. Because you want to know if the child is having thoughts in that direction. And if you approach it from a judgmental perspective, they're going to hide it, right? So you ask them, like, what when one of my daughters was starting school, somebody came to me and said, listen, you need to talk to her, because she has never been exposed to certain things. And and she might go there and a female check her out and so I had to ask her, how do you feel about persons of the same gender being attracted to each other? That's where I started. I had to just ask. And from her answer, now we had the conversation. Now, I don't believe the Muslims and other religions hold back on what they believe, right? So once she spoke, now I said, all right, so what do you think is God's view on this, right? And I kept pulling on her. But you have to have the conversation and be clear about your values, because research has shown that even though we think that the friends have a greater influence, research has shown that teens will follow their parents' values over their peers but that is for the parents who talk to them.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying? So if I am having that conversation and they know the values that we're based on, when the test comes, they are more likely to go with the values of the family rather than friends.
Yeah.
But if there's no connection here, they're going to go with who they're connected to. And
Yeah.
and just to add to that, you have to understand that what is taboo for us, this is something they talk about. I was sitting with a teen once, and she said she feels like a loner in her class, going to an all girls school, and she was the only one who was not having a girlfriend. And because of that, you're a Christian, you don't understand this, right? And so we have to be there to say to them, this is how the world is. Don't act like it's not there. But what are your values as an individual?
Excellent. You want me to add more to that?
No, because with time running out and I have the final question, Jayson, I would love for you to just send an encouragement to parents that feel like they just don't know. Like, even though we know how the body works and all of these things, we can't, I do think that there's a really don't know. They don't know about sex themselves. We just know that it's just it happens. Yeah. So, just as we are closing, I just love for you to talk to the parent.
I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. The first thing is recognizing that you don't know and accepting that and seek for help. And you can get help in various places. Of course, we mentioned the church, school, but the same very smart device that you have. Mm-hmm. You weren't born with the parenting skills. In fact, most of us, we tend to use the parenting skill that our parents use on us. So we need to revisit that. And one of the hardest things to take another approach. And taking another approach is not compromise. So many times we believe that if we listen more, it's compromise because children must be seen and not heard. No, away with that. So there are a lot of help around. You can go private as well as you can contact the National Parenting Support Commission. However, not every information that you get is acceptable or you should digest, because you have to remember now, we stand on biblical principles. Mm-hmm. So when you get some information, you can also find a friend and get their opinion as well. So that is my word of encouragement to you. If you don't know, you just don't know. None of us were born knowing anything.
Yeah.
But seek out and get advice. That is quite okay.
Wow. So that's it. I feel like the conversation ended so quickly because it's just such an important conversation to have. And, again, I'm grateful for our viewers that are asking questions and, continue to email us at the Daylight Show at gmail.com and let us know what you'd love for me to invite people, because this was very helpful for me. So, Megan, Jayson, thank you. Thank you. So as we close for today, I have this is just a one answer, Megan and Jayson. What age should the kids start having sex?
When they're married.
That's it, they're kids. They're kids. No.
Kids don't have sex. They shouldn't. Kids shouldn't have sex.
That's funny. So kids, you hear? You hear? Okay, kids shouldn't be having sex.
That's right.
Sex is for responsible adults. All right. So that's the end of the show for today. I hope that you are blessed. I want you to go to our YouTube as you watch a replay, and please just leave some comments. Let us know your takeaway. Let us know how you approach parenting and the idea of sex. And I want to thank you again for tuning into the Daylight Show every single Thursday, right, for season 2 at 8:30 p.m. on the MTM TV. So again, we're going to have some featured books on the screen. Go and support the authors. We're going to have some businesses also this season. You see, we have some businesses that we're shouting out, so please pay attention and go and support. Again, I want to thank you for another amazing episode, and we're looking forward to see you next week, same time on MTM TV with yours truly, Crystal Daye.
Daylight Show.